recording the interview of Cheli Chappell. This interview is being conducted by Ericka Carter from the Wright State University Veterans Voices Project. This interview is being recorded at Wright State University in the New Media Incubator. It is 10:32 a.m. on July 13, 2018. Hi.
Hi.
Where and when were you born?
I was born in Pomona, California in 1965.
Okay. Who were your parents and what were their occupations?
My mom's, her name is Barbara Gibson, and she was a nurse. And my dad, I'm not sure because they were divorced, so I didn't have really a lot of contact with him.
Okay. Any brothers or sisters?
I have two sisters. I have an older sister. Her name is Jacqueline Williams, and she also served in the Air Force. And then I have a younger sister. Her name is Simone Crawford, and she is married to a retired Air Force veteran.
Did your sister going in before you have any weigh in on your entrance?
Definitely. I was at a point where I had graduated from high school, wasn't sure what I wanted to do, and she encouraged me to join the Air Force.
Did she join right out of high school?
Yes, she sure did.
Okay. Did she make a career out of it?
She was in for 10 years.
Okay, half a career, still a good career.
Yep.
What did you do before you entered the service? And were there any, you said high school, was there any like activities or special things that you were into?
I played basketball. Actually, I played several sports, but I mainly played basketball in high school. And I worked part-time, like in the mall.
You were in the Air Force. What, were you active duty, enlisted?
Yes, I was enlisted.
Okay. Why did you choose the Air Force?
Because my sister told me.
Because your sister.
And actually I had a couple of friends who joined the Army, and my sister was like, you don't want to join the Army, you want to join the Air Force. So at that time, you know, she kind of talked about it like it was the elite of the different branches. And since she had already went through, you know, boot camp and was at her first station, I went on and decided to join the Air Force too. Kind of follow behind her.
So she was only like 6 months to a year ahead of you in the service?
No, she had been in a couple years because we're 4 years apart, so she had been in a couple years.
Okay. What was basic training or boot camp like?
I enjoyed it, believe it or not. You know, a lot of people don't, but I love the regimen of getting up and going out and, you know, the physical activity. When I was in, I was selected as one of the leaders in our group. And I enjoyed being in that leadership role too, because I could tell other people what to do.
Where were you stationed?
I was stationed at Nellis Air Force Base in Las Vegas, Nevada.
Oh. Is that still open?
I believe so, because one of my friends, her son joined the Air Force, and he's stationed there. So as far as I know, it's still there. So.
All right. So boot camp, you enjoyed it. Do you remember any specific instructors or training that you did that was extra special?
Not as far as their names, but like I said, I remember just being over the squad, like in the evening time, because at that time, there was mainly male instructors. There wasn't a lot of female instructors to stay with us in the evenings and overnight. And so that's why they had selected specific people in our group to serve in that role. So basically that's what I did, so I kind of enjoyed that.
Was there all age ranges of women, like where you were 18, 19 and over, were there a bunch of age ranges, or was everybody pretty much?
Everybody's pretty much the same age. If they were anybody that was a little older, they might have been in their 20s, but I didn't see any women that in their 30s or, you know, above, mainly like in our 18 to, I'd say 25 maybe.
What year is it?
The year that I was in?
The boot camp. What year was this?
1984.
And do you remember the time frame? Like, it's Las Vegas. Was it super hot?
Well, when I went into boot camp, it was in May, and it was scorching hot. We had a lot of red flag days, or red days, I believe they called red flag days back then, where we weren't able to go outside in March because it was so hot in Texas, you know. And then, of course, when I went to Vegas, it was just as hot. And I was like, oh my God, I'm going to be here for how long? Because I was there in July. So, That was my first introduction to the desert.
It's
And I
not like that in
remember,
California.
no, and I remember flying over, and you can see when I was going to the airport, you're kind of flying over downtown, and there was nothing like it is today, like the hotels. There were some, big hotels like the Sands, which is not even there anymore. But I just remember looking out the window and thinking, I'm going to be in the desert and it's going to be hot. I could feel it, as we were landing. You can feel the heat coming through the plane. That's how hot it was.
How did your parents feel, or your mom feel, about your joining and getting through it?
She was excited. She was excited for me to go in because of the opportunity that the military offers and the security of knowing that, I'll be looked after, not necessarily on my own, but, have the military support.
What was your job in the military?
I worked in flight records, and so my job was, I was a 702. No, that's not it. What is it? 271? 271. 271, I think that's what I call it. I can't remember. But anyway, I worked in flight records, and my job was to maintain the pilots' flying hours and sorties, and also to make sure they were medically trained, medically able to fly.
How long was your AIT, and where was it?
I didn't have one. I didn't have tech school. Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't have tech school. I went straight from basic training to my to the base.
So just on-the-job training.
Yep.
Here you go. This is what we expect of
Yep.
you.
Yep. I had no technical training school. We just went straight from boot camp to my base.
Wow.
I guess it was my career field. We didn't have one, so we didn't have a tech school.
And did you choose that, or did they choose that for you?
I chose it based on the testing that I did. That was one of my highest areas, was in administrative, and so that's what I chose to do.
Okay.
I kind of weighed all the other things, like I didn't want to work on a flight line because I was high in mechanical too, but everybody was saying it's going to be too hot, you want to work inside, so I took administrative.
Okay. You get to your first base, and that was where?
Las Vegas, Nellis Air Force Base.
So you trained there, and that was your first duty station?
Mm-hmm.
Oh.
Yep.
You just stuck in
Went
Nellis.
straight to Nellis, and that's actually where I separated too. I didn't even get stationed anywhere else.
Oh, okay. Okay. What were some of your specific duties on the job? Was it anything more than you listed, or just making sure everybody was good to go on their paperwork? Yeah,
just making sure they were good to go on the paperwork, which is an important role because you want to make sure the pilots that are flying these million-dollar aircrafts are, medically able to do that. And so that was one of the things. We had to make sure that they got their training and make sure they were medically cleared in order to fly the aircraft.
Going from boot camp to first duty station can be same place, but can be a big transition. Did you feel that transition at all? No, all restriction, you can't do this, you can't do that. Suddenly you move across the base and you're free. How did you adjust?
It wasn't really that much of an adjustment for me because at that time I was, looking forward to being, in the military. And so I kind of kept to myself still in the beginning until I got to know, more friends, meet more people. And I was always kind of that type of person too, before I even went into the military. So I was just more serious. I was ready to serve my country. So,
what kind of friendships did you make in the military, and do you still have them?
I sure do. And that's the one thing that I love about the military is that camaraderie and still having those relationships. Here 30 years later, and two of my friends are still in Las Vegas. They stayed there. But we've been in touch for over 30 years, and it's just been wonderful. It's like a family. You don't forget those close ties.
Were you able to see your sister when you guys were both on active duty?
No, not like at the same base or anything like that. Of course, when we would go home, we try to arrange going home around the same time. But no, I never visited her at where she was stationed, and she never visited me where I was stationed.
How long were you in the military?
I served my 4 years. Mm-hmm.
Okay. Can you tell me about some of the day-to-day activities that you did while you were working? Or people?
Oh gosh, mainly it was just a lot of paperwork. I just remember doing a lot of things, and it was kind of funny because I remember during that time, that's when computers were changing, and everything was coming out, and trying to adapt and get away from like microfiche and stuff like that. So it was an interesting time where you can see that technology was actually changing. I struggled some though after I got in, mainly because of sexual harassment when I was in the Air Force. During that time, I was the only female in my office, and so I had to deal with a lot of that type of pressure.
You were the only female in your office. So did you take on other duties, or were there male counterparts that did the other admin work?
There are other male counterparts that did the other admin work. So it was challenging because I was 18, 19 years old, and I didn't know how to deal with it. It wasn't something that was discussed before I went in, or that you would have to, deal with when you go into the military.
Did you assume that you would be working with a lot of other women, or it just never crossed your mind?
It just never crossed my mind, of who I would be working with. And then, like I said, as working in that office, that environment, I had never dealt with sexual harassment, so I didn't understand really what was going on. But I did report it to my supervisors, and it sometimes went on deaf ears because they were men. It was kind of that old boys club, at that time in the military. So I don't know if it's changed that much today, but I know there's more awareness about sexual harassment, and I know there's more avenues to get help.
Okay. Thank you for sharing that.
Mm-hmm. I think it's important, though, too, for women who are going through that, even today, to get help, because there are other, like I said, there's groups out there, and there's departments that you can go to report it and to get help. That was one of the things that I always made sure that I still, did, was report it. And that helped me to get some of that, off my chest and not just keep it inside. Especially with the suicide rate, which is really high in the military, you should seek help if you need it.
And help is abundant now, which is good.
Yeah.
It's free. It's phone numbers you can call. There's places you can go, people you can talk to.
Yeah, so I would encourage anyone, male or female, who's dealing with any type of sexual harassment. I had a friend, he was a male, and he dealt with it at that time. And it is important to get help, either female or male.
Okay. That was work. Apparently you needed to de-stress.
Yes. I lived in Vegas,
So what did you do in your free time?
I spent a lot of time downtown in the casinos at that time, especially once I turned 21, just like just having that freedom, you're away from home. So I did a lot of partying and enjoying myself with my friends. We did a lot of group activities, so it wasn't, I didn't have to go out by myself. We all went out as a group, and that was a lot of fun. And we would go bowling. And if you think about Las Vegas, pretty much everything's open 24 hours. So, we would go out to eat at 2 o'clock in the morning or just hang out. So it was a lot of fun. And then the weather was nice, especially at nighttime. You don't feel that heat. I mean, it's warm, but you don't have that sun, beaming down on you. So it was really nice weather. You dress in shorts and t-shirt, tank top, and just enjoying life.
Did some of your fellow compadres get in trouble?
No, I didn't hang out with that kind of crowd. There was no fighting or anything like that. We just went out and just had fun as a group. And it was male and females, and just kind of took care of each other, watched out for each other.
If there weren't any females in your office, where did you meet other female?
In the barracks, mainly in the barracks. Mm-hmm.
Do you think that other people had the same experience that you had, other women?
Oh, yes, definitely. I know my sister went through it, and it's funny, not funny, but we just had this discussion within the last 2 years. I didn't know she was going through it, and she didn't know I was going through it. Because it isolates you in a sense that you sometimes you feel like maybe it's your fault, or you blame yourself, or, you don't want to really share with anybody because you're embarrassed. So neither one of us had even spoke to each other about it. It was just something that we kept to ourselves. And just like I said, recently, we had a conversation about it and found out that each other went through that experience. So I'm sure it was happening even with more women.
I'm so sorry that you and your sister went through that.
Oh, thank you.
That is horrible. Did you ever receive any type of, were any of the people that harassed you ever prosecuted?
No.
Okay. So we had a good time when we were off duty. We did our job well, and pretty simple job. 4 years. You got out. Then what?
Then I actually stayed in Las Vegas for a little bit. I went into the banking industry and worked there for a while. And then I eventually moved back to California. I kind of missed home. And at that time, too, I was a single mom, so I decided to move back home. Still was in the banking industry for a little bit. And then I ended up, my passion was always cooking. Like, I was the cook at home. And I actually went into culinary. Went to school for culinary and food and restaurant operations. And so I kind of shifted my career and went into that field for a while. And then
What's a while?
I can't remember, several years. And then I decided to go into sales, and I did sales for like 17 years, past 17 years.
Did your military job help you get the banking job?
No, it didn't.
Did you need any schooling for the banking job?
No, it was just basic customer service experience. But I wanted to stay in Vegas, and at that time, Citibank was there, and they had built this huge facility, and they were looking for, for people to work. And so I wanted to stay in Vegas, and I worked there for a while.
Then moved home, went to culinary school. Did the military pay for that?
No. Actually, I did not qualify for the GI Bill because of the time that I had went in. And then at that time, too, when I was in the military, I didn't contribute to the VEEP program. That's what it was called back then. Excuse me. And so I ended up having to just pay for it myself. And I got a few scholarships and grants to help pay for it as well.
Okay. Did that for a while. Where'd you work? I'm just curious.
I worked at a place that doesn't exist anymore. I don't know if I should say the name of it, but it was called Fresh Choice. And it was a restaurant that served soups and salads, and we had like all kinds of salads, probably like 15 or 20 different salads, and we did different soups and pasta, and it was like a buffet style.
Like Soup Plantation?
Yeah, like Soup Plantation, but it was called Fresh Choice.
It was before its time.
Yeah, it was
got
way
off.
before Soup Plantation, but
Before people got healthy.
yeah, before people got healthy. But it was a great experience. I moved up in the company. I started out as a restaurant manager, and then I was promoted to the corporate office, and I worked in product development. And so my job was to create different recipes for the menus. And at that time, they had about 54 different restaurants in California, Texas, and I believe it was in Washington. And so my responsibility was huge in order, to come up with different products, help with the catering and promoting that as well. So it was a lot of fun. I enjoyed that.
And then you moved over to sales.
Yeah, I did that for a while, and then I relocated here to Ohio. And at that time, I was doing some management. I ended up transferring and doing some management in food service. And at that time, I met my sales rep, and I enjoyed what he enjoyed what he was doing, and we always had a conversation about it. He said, "You would be really good at sales. You should do sales." And so his company ended up having a position come available for me to work in the Dayton area. And at that time, I was commuting down to Cincinnati with my previous job. So I took advantage of that, and I did that for, like I said, about 17 years. I did sales, that type of sales.
The moving to Ohio and then close to an Air Force base, was that on purpose?
Yes. My sister, my younger sister, and her husband were stationed here at Wright Pat. And at the time, I wanted to purchase a home. And if you know anything about California, it's very, very expensive. And so when I was looking, my sister was telling me, "You should come out to Ohio. You know what you would pay for a condo there. You can get a house built here." And I came out to visit a couple times, and I like the area. I like the Four Seasons, and so I made that choice to move and purchased a home with my son, and so we lived here. I've been here almost 20 years.
Do you think that living in a military community is different or easier since you were in the military, that structure?
I think it's probably easier. I do like the fact that Wright supports a lot of, supports the economy, number one, because of the jobs that they offer to even civilians. But it's a big Air Force base, and I've worked with some of veterans. That's how I kind of met you, So, so I think it's a positive thing.
Okay. One son, moved to Ohio.
Mm-hmm.
Love it. Love your job. Transfer jobs. Love it. Then what?
Well, then I also got married and had 2 more kids, so I have 3 total. My oldest is 25, and then I have a 12-year-old, and I have an 11-year-old.
Wow, that's a big difference.
So yes, yeah.
Okay. What did your husband do?
My husband here, he worked for the city of Dayton.
Okay, not military.
But no, not military.
No.
No, and now he's my ex-husband.
That happens
Yeah,
from time to time. What do you do now? Or what did you do after that?
I stayed in sales, like I said, for 17 years, and then I decided to go back to school in 2016 and get my bachelor's degree, and attended Wright State here. And so I just recently graduated April of this year.
Congratulations.
Thank you. So I'm pretty excited about that, and I'm taking some time off, because I was going to school full time, and I just decided to take the summer off, and so now I'm looking to get back into the work environment.
Any extracurricular activities?
I do have a nonprofit organization. It's a nonprofit 501c3 BBB accredited charity organization. It's called Mothers and Daughters United, and we've been incorporated as an organization since January 2012, and so that has kept me busy as well. We do a lot of activities for the community and for mothers and daughters, and actually we started our programs for moms raising sons as well. And we host each year we host a military luncheon, Women of Honor military luncheon, and I think that's how we ended up connecting, if I remember correctly. And we actually have it coming up this year. It's November 3rd at the Dayton Women's Club, so we're in the planning stages for that, and we're really excited about this. This will be our 5th year hosting this luncheon for military and active duty women. And it's a free event for military and active duty women as long as they register. And we try to provide a little history about women in the military, as well as provide entertainment and some great food. And then we also get to share that camaraderie with the different branches, because a lot of times when you're in the military, you may not meet someone else from another branch. You may just deal with if you're in Air Force, you're only dealing with Air Force. So it's kind of nice to hear stories and get that experience from other branches of service.
That is wonderful.
Yeah.
Thank you very much for that.
Yeah,
you're
welcome.
Thoroughly love going.
Thank you.
It is the best. I look forward to that all year.
Good.
So thank you so much for that, and the program for mothers and daughters. What are some other things that you do in Mothers and Daughters?
We host seminars and workshops for moms and their daughters to help strengthen the relationship between mothers and daughters. That can be a very trying time, especially when they become teenagers. So we always want to have something for them an outreach or resource for them to come to us when they're not just when they're having issues, but even when they're getting along. So our programs are designed around that to help foster healthy relationships.
Has your military service impacted your feelings about what's happening in the world today?
Oh, definitely, especially like the Me Too movement. That brought back a lot of memories and feelings about sexual harassment in the workplace. And to be honest, I really am looking for an outlet to try to help in that area. And so I'm trying to figure out some things, I'm working on some things to help with women here in the military that may have experienced that are looking to get help.
That is going to be so great.
Thank
I wish you well. Let me know if you need any help.
I will. I will.
Because that's going to be so beneficial to veterans and active duty.
And our luncheon this year for military active duty and military veteran women, we are going to have a guest speaker who's going to talk about post-traumatic stress disorder as well as military sexual trauma. So that's one way that I'm helping to get the word out, and also to provide resources for women to get help in case there's any other women who are going through that who may be suffering in silence and not able to, not know where to go. So we will be doing that this year.
What are some life lessons that you learned from the military?
One of the things I think the military taught me was to be disciplined, and to it really, when I went in, like I said, my goal was to do 20 years, or more, but just because I was young, I didn't know how to deal with the experiences that I was going through. I went on and separated, but it taught me about having great relationships, how important that is. It also taught me, like I said, about being disciplined, and also staying in shape, being physically fit. But I did enjoy, like I said, the camaraderie. I really enjoy that, and I take that experience with me wherever I go. So when I meet someone or build relationships with people, that's one of the things I always think about, is that camaraderie. I kind of take that, with me everywhere I go.
Are you involved in any other veteran or military organizations?
I kind of, not really. I do support one, Cheryl Maloney. I support her organization, which is Life's Transitions for Me, that helps veteran women, or not just veteran women, but anyone who's separated from the military to transition into civilian life. So I work with her on a few projects. She actually supported our luncheon last year, her organization, and did a fashion show, which was awesome, with Tanger Outlets. And then I've worked with some other veteran women who have their own projects.
Okay. Is there anything you feel like we haven't discussed that you would like to discuss?
No, I guess not really. I mean, we've kind of covered an array of different things. So,
what message would you like to leave for future generations who will hear or view this interview?
I think everyone, and I've kind of discussed this before with other people, I really think that women and men, young women and men, should serve in the military. I wish they had it where they, when they graduate from high school, they have to serve a year or 2 years in the service so that they can understand what the military does and how we protect how we protect our, I don't say our rights, but our, how we just protect us from other countries, from danger. The military is very, very important, and I don't think people always look at it that way. Unless there's a war or something going on, you don't really hear a lot about, people supporting the military. So I think sometimes that if you had to serve, you would understand and not take it for granted what the military does for our country.
So we as military protect our freedom of speech.
Yeah, that's freedoms. That's what I was trying to get the word out. Yeah, our freedoms, not our rights, but our freedoms. Yeah,
yes.
Yeah.
Have you ever been somewhere where have you ever traveled and saw where it's different?
No, I never traveled outside of the United States. I'll take that back. I have been to Canada, but I've never traveled to a country where I witnessed where you didn't have those kind of rights, or where women didn't have rights to, talk or work, so I've never experienced that outside of the United States. However, I've seen, things in the news or, on television that talk about that. And I just thank God that I'm here in America, that I don't have to deal with that,
Okay. How would Cheli's plan for putting mandatory service go into action?
You gotta go. No, I was kidding. I would incorporate it in schools. Like, it's some type of subject that they can have going forward, so they kind of understand what they're going to do. I know a lot of times you see recruiters at high schools or colleges, but I think it's something that they should incorporate throughout as their curriculum, to learn about what we do, what the military does, as far as protecting their freedoms and the different branches and the specialties in each branch that are there. But I think they should incorporate it in school.
At least give them a class.
At least give them a class.
At least give them a class.
Yep.
Make PE a little rougher.
Yep. More like boot camp.
Yeah, that would probably benefit a lot of kids.
Yeah.
These days.
And I think, I don't know, just, with the high school dropout rate, and I think it also gives you some direction of maybe where you want to go in life. I think for me at 18 going in the military, I have no regrets about that. I really didn't know what I wanted to do. And so it helped give me direction, for my life and for my future. So I think that it can do that for a lot of people.
Look at you.
I
Now.
know.
You're so
I
awesome.
know. Thank
Okay.
you.
Well, thank you so much for doing this interview.
You're welcome.
We're going to conclude the interview with Cheli Chappell. Thank you so much.
Thank you. You're welcome.